The Nebula Class is a little over 440 metres long and has a crew complement of 750. It is a fast ship coming in at warp 9.6, armed with 8 Type 10 phaser arrays and 2 photon torpedo launchers. It was built at the Utopia Planitia fleet yards. The vessel's primary mission was one of science and exploration, and it was able to do so for prolonged periods of time. As Starfleet had to adapt to changing conditions, the Nebula would also find itself used as a patrol and transport craft. For ease of maintenance and construction, the Nebula shares quite a few design ideals and components with the Galaxy class. The saucer section is the most obvious, though there are some important differences. The Nebula is about 200 metres shorter than the Galaxy class and with about 250 fewer crew members. The Nebula has its warp nacelles hung below and they reside next to the engineering hull, rather than being above the secondary hull as you would find on the Galaxy class. One of the reasons the ship was so popular was due to its modular design. This was largely thanks to the equipment module that hangs over the saucer section, similar to the Miranda class. Its design allowed for the changing of equipment. This meant that the ship could be outfitted with more weapons, sensors, or cargo capacity. These modules also look different, which meant that the various Nebula class ships might look slightly different themselves. Due to its size, it also comes with solid shields, which will allow it to stay in combat for a decent amount of time. Now I have to admit that while I'm a big fan of the Next Generation, I am not a big fan of Next Gen's Enterprise. It's just way too unbalanced for me. The big elongated saucer section mixed with the short stubby rear section and engines, it just feels off to my sense of order. Now if this is your Enterprise, then that is totally cool. The funny thing is that even though this ship is not one that stands out in a lot of people's memory, it is however used quite a lot. It has been in 3 different series and 2 movies. The cost of new models was quite high and the ones used on the show and movies were really big. These were not model kits. This led them to reuse as many ships as they had models for, but the models that they had from the movies were ones from the original era, not a modern Next Gen. By the nature of the show, as even though it was popular, they did not always have a lot of money for things like new ships. The Nebula class is a product of the show's economy. It's a bit of a kit bash. The Enterprise saucer is its main component. The hull and engines are both connected under it. This kept the cost down, and as it was the Enterprise saucer, it looks like it is modern and would exist alongside the flagship. It is quite a wide-looking ship, and can be quite longer than some people think, as it's not a very small ship. There is something about its overall look though that I quite like. The Miranda class has always been one of my favourites, and there are some loose similarities between the two. The model is part of the Eaglemoss Starship collection, and it is a really big collection now. Over the years, from very humble beginnings, Star Trek has added a staggering array of new ships to its shows. Eaglemoss has done an excellent job of bringing these designs to life. The ship comes with a nice 18-page book that talks about the ship and the model. This one also includes a couple of pages on the Cardassians. The model itself comes in a cardboard box with a clear topper. The model within can be clearly seen. I did not keep my boxes as space is an issue, but if you have the space to keep them, I suggest you do, as they are very useful if you ever have to move the model. With the box is the model and the stand. Now the stands are both good and bad. On the plus side you get a stand. This isn't always a guarantee with display models or kits, so it is cool to have them here. It is also not an invasive one. There is no hole in the model for the stand. Instead the stand slides over the rear of the model and holds it in place. Now the disadvantage to this is that the stand covers a little of the model, which can be a little unsightly depending on the ship. Some hide it better than others. The other problem is as it's not fixed but slides into the stand's holder, it is not hard for the ship to fall out. Now this will not happen just by itself, but if it's in a cabinet on an old wooden floor that moves a little when people walk by, or a cabinet that might get bumped in a high traffic area, then the model might fall out. It's just something to keep in mind. The model is excellent and has a bit of weight to it. It's a mix of plastic and metal. The saucer, hull and upper sensor section are metal while the warp engines are plastic. The detail itself is really nice. The ring of the saucer has fine detail representing lights and some raised areas, with a more solid center section. The engines have clear coloured tips which are in red. The sensor section above the saucer comes with a pattern and raised detail. Before I received it I was concerned it might have just been a decal, but it isn't. For the RPG, the Nebula class is featured in the game and comes with some cool options. Although the ship has been used quite a few times, it's still not that popular, so its inclusion in the RPG is a very nice thing to have. Eaglemoss have been doing an excellent job all around on its different lines, but the Star Trek ships are one of their best. The Nebula is a very nice model, and it's great to finally be able to display one, as there is little chance of it coming as a model kit. This was well worth the money. Engage.